Happy Sunday, beautiful Black geniuses. How is everyone today? Welcome to the Black Wealth Project. This is the project where we get a bunch of Black financial geniuses together and we talk about Black issues and particularly ways to end the Black wealth gap. I want to say hello to the crew. It looks like one of us has dropped out. Hopefully he'll be right back. But hello to Black Wealth team, Jimmy, Corey, Malik, and Courtney. How is everybody today?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. How you?
Can't complain, man. You're doing pretty good, man.
Yeah, no complaints.
I'm a little angry, but other than that, I'm good.
What you angry about?
I'm angry other days, but I got angry again a few minutes ago. So.
A few minutes ago.
About what?
Man, you talking to us a few minutes ago. What happened?
No, about what? So I was on the post by I just see people all you pull yourself up by the bootstrap Black people, like I made it so everybody can do it. The government ain't the problem. Stop complaining. That type thing, man.
Gotcha.
The bull, Puerto Rican boy, a passing Puerto Rican boy posted
We're good.
Posted something about how the Western culture is changed because of the victimhood society, and everybody pointing toward victimhood, and they had a picture of AOC up there, and then all these Black people like, yo, you don't see the dog whistle? You know what I'm saying? Like, they are using your sensibility and your willingness to negotiate, and kind of bend to say, oh yeah, I agree. Then they sneak that in, then right behind it they come a whole bunch of other racist rhetoric. You don't see that part yet. All you see is this thing you're agreeing with. You're agreeing with the Klan, but you don't know it's a Klan member until you get behind the curtain, right?
Listen, man. Just tell them to read. Just tell them to read, man. All I do now is tell people I suggest books for them to read, man, because there's no sense in arguing with a wall. So give them a couple good books to read. Tell them do the knowledge before you start to open your mouth.
Yeah, here's the thing, listen, I like Bull. I think that he doing good work. I just think that, in my opinion, I don't know that he doesn't really see that this message about the West being destroyed by victimhood is damaging. But then after that, I got jumped in the post. It's like, you know what? I disagree with that. But if the West has been destroyed, good, because the West ain't never benefit me or people that look like me. So if the West has been destroyed, perfect. I like it.
All right, what's going on with you, Corey? You still down there in Texas?
Yeah, man, I'm down here losing weight just because of the heat. It rained down here today, and so after it rained, you know how it gets kind of sweltering hot after a rain, and it feels like your lungs about to burst. That's how I feel down here, but it feels like 20 times worse than it does on the East Coast. Like, it feels like every time I take a breath, somebody's stabbing me in my lungs, man. It's dumb.
All right, well, stay hydrated down there.
Hey, how the mosquitoes down there?
The size of your fist.
Tracy, how you doing?
I'm good. It's Father's Day. Just got done celebrating with my family and everything else. So today's a good day.
All right, absolutely. Jimmy?
Oh man, I can't complain, man. I'm blessed and highly favored, man. I'm just very excited to be on the show with you guys. So I really have no complaints right now, man. Like, everything's going good. Working on the rehab. You know what I'm saying? Malik put me down the play of all plays, and now I'm cooking in the options market. So I'm excited, man. I'm doing pretty good. I have no complaints.
All right. What's up with you, Courtney? Miss Ivy Investor.
Yeah. I mean, people have been asking me that for last. And I'm just like, we had the whole conversation about Juneteenth, which we'll get into later. But as an attorney, I look at it differently because, when you're a 1L in law school, you hear about this stuff and people and I went to a predominantly white law school. Like, my law school class had 6 Black people. 6. So it's kind of like turning up these old feelings. And I'm like, whoo. So, I'm excited about the convo. Tracy and I have been working on the never-ending story of a project. It's like Bob Vila's This Old House, but on steroids. So we're really trying to wrap this thing up by the end of the month, possibly. I mean, fingers crossed. I mean, I don't know. So y'all keep us lifted in prayer because I know I'm feeling Tracy's nerves.
All right, will do. Listen, everybody, I want to say happy belated Juneteenth. I hope everybody celebrated or at least honored the ancestors on that day. Also, happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to Malik. Happy Father's Day to Corey. Happy Father's Day to myself. So today,
I just want to send all three of them.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Jimmy. But today's main topic is going to be Juneteenth and more. How important is Black culture to building wealth? But before we get into that, let's do our quick wealth check-in. Sounds like Corey's down in Texas losing weight, so he's already Gucci. Malik, what's up with you?
I've been all right, man. Yesterday wasn't really a great day, but for the most part, we're doing all right. Eating a little healthier for the most part. I'll be back on my greens tomorrow, how it's supposed to be. But right now, vegan to the weekend. I don't know if you can see it, but shirts finally came in.
Okay.
And so yeah, I've been doing pretty okay health. Well, except for I did have a soda yesterday. I did have that, but be all right.
All right, Courtney, what about you? How you looking? You burning out?
For me?
Yes, you.
So I'm grinding it out as always, kicking in with Peloton. But tomorrow starts a 75-day straight mental toughness challenge. So there's like 5 things you have to do. Follow a diet. So we've talked about this before. I'm on the keto diet. I've been a little on. Listen, people have been judging my life. I did have ice cream and it was sugar in it, and I thought it was delicious. It was Jenny's, but I gotta get it back together. So I'm getting back to strict keto. Working out twice a day for at least 45 minutes. So that's 90 minutes in total, but 45 of it has to be outside. Drinking a gallon of water a day. So I drink about 100 ounces a day, but I'm going to get to that gallon, which is at 28 more ounces. Read 10 pages of a nonfiction entrepreneurship book and take a progress picture every single day. So it starts tomorrow and it ends September 5th. So this is going to be like the thing. And I'm really excited about it.
Okay. All right.
That sounds pretty tough. Gotta be mentally tough to even take that on.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah, that's very aggressive.
I'm excited for you.
Tracy, how you living over there? How's your health coming?
I'm good. Still moving, still shaking, still walking up and down steps and downstairs to basement. So steps is always still getting in. Want to do a little bit more of greenery in my diet during the week.
What kind of greenery?
I'm feeling like spinach and kale, those things.
Broccoli?
Broccoli too. I love broccoli. So that's already what I eat, but I just feel like I need to kick it up a little notch because I definitely
I heard greenery.
I'm just going to clear that up and we'll just move on.
How you make it out, Jimmy?
Oh man, I'm doing great, man. First off, Courtney, a good book for you is Own Your Time and Space, but that's either here nor there. Listen, man, I'm down another 4 pounds, so that's 12 pounds in 2 weeks. So I told you, man, everything right now is moving for me, man. Like, I'm following the plan. So I'm focused right now, man.
Okay. Corey, did you have anything to add, or it was just you were down in Texas losing weight?
Yeah, man. So just walking around down here and breathing, you lose weight, man. So I ain't even really do nothing that special. Like I ran around the track a little bit, and then I walked because my lungs was on fire because of the sweltering heat. So I ain't really get I did get up 1,000 jump shots this week though. My jump shots don't never go away. So anybody who wants some work in some horse or some pig can get it. My jump shots still wet.
We can do it. We can
definitely do that. We can definitely do that.
My jump shot's still wet.
We gotta have a COVID-free basketball though.
I don't know how that's gonna work.
We'll spray it down with lights off. We'll spray it down with lights off before you get on. Well, for me, with my health check-in, actually, I kind of fell off this week. I only biked like one time this week, about 8 miles. It was a good ride, but I done fell off the wagon a little bit. Still recuperating from that 100 miles in May. But I'll be back on it this week. I still got to get another 80 miles and biking and another 20 miles and running.
I saw you posted a picture hitting the links, but I don't. Is golfing even fun? I've never.
Oh,
is that
it's fun.
enjoyable?
I love
It's fun.
golfing.
It's
I
fun.
love golfing. Yeah.
Take it from somebody who don't do much of anything recreational outside of playing ball and running around a track. Golf is fun. Like that's why. Listen, man. Look at Top Golf, man. They open it everywhere.
Everywhere. And listen, it's been the millions
Listen,
to
man.
open Top Golf.
And the funny thing about golf, right? A lot of people don't think it's a sport, but if you literally walk 18 and you're carrying your bag, it's a workout.
You're gonna get a workout.
It's a
Yeah,
workout.
you're gonna get a workout.
No doubt.
I mean, it's a workout. It's a workout, but is it a sport or an activity? Because it's two different.
Sport.
Like if I don't have to go change my gear, like if I could leave the golf course and go pull up to a restaurant with the same thing on, then it's not really a sport per se. Like I mean, but that's we can get into that. We can get into that debate a whole different place. Like
right. Marquise Cheney says golfing is addictive, right? So he knows it's a sport. He knows it's a sport.
No, he said it's addictive. He didn't say it's a sport. He said it's addictive.
He knows it's a sport. He knows. All right, we're right
if golfing is if golfing is a sport, so is battle rap. But I'm sorry, let's go.
Oh Lord.
Oh man.
Right. So this week's Bob of the Week is comedic knowledge. Again, comedic knowledge. Comedic knowledge is the only Black athletic fitness apparel company geared towards Black women, at least that I know of. They've been around for a couple of years. They're doing their thing on social. They've seen a major uptick in business during COVID. So I am very proud to present comedic knowledge as our Bob of the Week this week. If anybody needs any workout gear, any ladies need any workout gear or leggings or sweats, check them out. We got to stop spending our money with these folks.
Comedic knowledge.
Comedic knowledge, absolutely. All right, so we go on to our main topic, and our main topic is how important is culture to Black wealth. But I want to read this. Real quick. A people without the knowledge of the past, history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Can anybody guess the author of that quote?
I used to know this.
Marcus Messiah Garvey.
Thank you, Jimmy. Gold star for Jimmy. Thank you, sir.
You should have prepared me for a history quiz. I'd have brushed up.
Does this?
Listen,
this is what I do, man.
Right. So listen, I mean, I think that quote is very, very powerful, especially when we talk about Black wealth, Black culture, how we're going to move forward and position ourselves. So when I think many of us oftentimes don't think about culture, we just think about money. So with everything going on with Juneteenth, what do you call it, Jimmy? Panda Express. With everything going on with Juneteenth, Panda Express. I wanted to talk today about how Black culture impacts Black wealth. So what do y'all think about Black culture? Starting with Courtney.
So I think it's a two-pronged question. So what do you think about Black culture and Black wealth? Okay. So
as it relates to Black wealth, I'm sorry.
Okay, as it relates, it's a lot. Because I think one of the problems that we have worldwide, especially in the United States, but worldwide, is that our culture is appropriated into mass media, and then other entities other than Black people get the benefit from it. So, I mean, I think that's something that we can't ignore, because our culture is kind of like what drives the forces of the economy overall. But no one ever seems to give us credit for it. So I think that's like a big thing. The second thing, culture as it relates to wealth, I think that's a really rough one, because I think one of the things, and we've talked about this before, I think we have an idea of socioeconomics, and we incorporate our socioeconomic status into race, and they're two separate issues. They're intermingled, they're intertwined, but they are two separate issues. I think that's something else that we have to kind of suss through or work out. But I think culture and understanding our culture is imperative to gaining wealth. I think when you look, I think we've had a conversation about the Western mindset before, And the Western mindset is basically on the opposite side of the way that, you know, our culture looks at things. Like, we don't look at things linear with, like, in a straight line. We look at things holistically, culturally. If you look at our history, if you look at the way that we operated in Africa before our ancestors were stolen, I mean, we were always very much looking at a global holistic view, and we weren't looking at that straight line. And I think going back to that type of, back to those roots, the holistic view, I think that's the way that we can recapture or regain our culture and regain our wealth in relation to the culture. We've always been a wealthy people, and I want to make that 110% clear. We're a wealthy people. We just have to reclaim our wealth.
Coming to you, Malik. What do you got on this?
So, I mean, it's really a tough one to say that there even is like a black culture. You know, we do have like a hip hop culture, right? But where everybody loves Auntie Maxine now, right? In the '90s, Auntie Maxine was trying to like really get rid of hip hop, right? As in general, but then there's a segmented like, you know, the Haitian, the Nigerian Americans, you know, however it is, and so it's really tough to say that there really is even a black culture. There are we can probably create it because even the black folks here, like culturally, are totally different. Like once you get like below Maryland, that the culture of black folks is entirely different. So to have something that we should do as a culture together, like really makes sense. And one thing I do want to point out is nobody really, you know, even speaks about the segmented relationships like amongst white people, right? I went to a new construction project, and the owner of the painter company, he was Irish, right? And he only hired Irish painters. Like that's all he had on the staff was Irish people, right? And so we even but that's a culture thing. He wasn't like, hey, I'm a white guy, I want to hire white people. Like, yo, I'm Irish, right? That's his identity, that's his culture, and that's how he built his framework around his business, only hiring Irish people. But as me, as far as black folk, when it comes to building wealth, there are things that we should do together. But a black culture, you know, as it all, it's hard to say that there really even is one.
Gotcha. Corey, coming to you next.
It's difficult to what Courtney said, we had to separate them. It's difficult for me to separate them because culturally we've been taught, being born here in America, that, you know, individually to strive for individual success. And so when striving for individual success, a lot of the times the groups get left behind because they'll say, you know, the person who makes it to this individual successful place says, well, all of the people that I'm supposed to help, none of those people help me. But the point is that if you do things culturally together, then everybody gets to you'll benefit from that too. And so we don't have enough of that. We have individual success stories to point to, but we don't have a bunch of group success stories to talk about. Not here in America and not in the world as a whole. We don't control the means of production of anything. And so when we don't control the means of production of anything, we don't have that cultural backstop. I mean, the economic backstop to go with to help our, you know, to coalesce the cultural things that goes with that. And so we need to create that economic backstop so that whatever we want to do culturally, we can do it without having to worry about somebody controlling what we do. Because if somebody can, you know, turn out your lights, cut off your water, you know, you won't be able to get groceries shipped to you, like what they did to Haiti. You know, when Haiti decided that they wanted to be culturally independent, the world shut them off. And until they, you know, got back with the rest of the world, you know, people wouldn't even come, you know, to their aid. They did the same thing to Mugabe in Africa. When he decided, you know, culturally, this is what we want to do, you know, they imposed economic sanctions on them and made it extremely difficult for them to do. The United States tried to do that to Cuba, You know what I mean? And in Cuba, so anytime culturally, any place where there's brown people that decide they want independence culturally, what the world does is put economic sanctions on them. So you cannot separate those two things.
Gotcha. Tracy, what are your thoughts on this?
We can't hear you.
You're muted.
You gotta unmute.
Sorry, I thought I clicked it. My bad. I definitely feel like Black culture is definitely needed in Black wealth. I think it's important. And I think we are very wealthy in culture because Black culture is very specific, which is why a lot of people like to, rip us off and culture vulture us for those things. But when you think of Black culture and the wealth that comes from it, we're talking hair, we're talking dance, we're talking fabrics, we're talking music, we're talking jazz, we're talking a lot of eras of music were born out of Black culture music, and it's still thriving to this day. We also are talking about a lot of other pop culture things that kind of have popped up out of it too, as well as a lot of different trends that have happened throughout the years. And I feel like that stuff is very specific to Black culture. And when we're going into wealth, we really, really need that sprinkling of our culture in it when we're pushing our narrative of wealth, so that way we can claim it for the corners of the world that we need it to be specific to us. And I think it's something we need to focus a lot more on to make sure that we have more of our culture involved in it, so that way we can really, really identify it very quickly. Like, you can see a Black woman and you know the difference between whether or not she's a sister. That kind of stuff makes a difference when you see them in these CEO positions, when you see them in these business owner positions, and you can make a difference of having that conversation. So when we go back to looking at some of these CEOs, for instance, I was talking to my girlfriends about this, and we were having the conversation about the Lowe's CEO being an African-American man. And we checked and we were looking, we were like, who's he married to? Do some photos and looking around, and he's married to a sister. And once you look at that nucleus and you're like, okay, now we're culturing more with Black wealth for people who identify with their Blackness, who identify with their, whether it's roots of hair, roots of fashion, roots of, even there were certain ways on how we braided specifically that came over from African countries that are translated now into today, and people pay hundreds of dollars to get these styles done in all cultures. And they originated in, some of them Nairobi, some of them Aruba. And it's documented that in hundreds and hundreds of years ago that this is where it came from. So I feel like we really, really need to have a lot more of our culture instituted into some of these wealth conversations of situations that we're putting our money into. And I think we have a lot more say-so and wiggle room with the movement that's being put in front of us now, that we can start really, really pushing the envelope a little bit more to kind of say, yes, we need to do more of this, or more money needs to be put into these communities or into these arenas of fashion, art. When we start talking about some of these Black artists that came out and some of their work that is still being revered to this day, like, those are my thoughts.
Gotcha. Jimmy, what you think?
All right, so man, got the benefit of going last and listening to everyone, because I agree with a little bit of what everyone said, but I think we do have a Black culture. I understand what Malik is saying. So there's like subsets of the culture. You may have like, a culture that's a little different, whether you're in South, you may be in culture. I think overall that there is a Black culture. I think that wealth needs to be a bigger part of Black culture or African American culture, whatever culture you want to call it, but wealth discussions and wealth in general need to become a bigger part of the culture. So when you asked this question and I thought about it, my mind went somewhere similar to where Corey went, because within our culture, we talk about wealth, but generally like rugged individualism, which is a problem, right? Because it's never about community. But there is a culture. So some will say our culture was stolen from us, but we have a culture since we've been here. There is a culture that it does exist. And I think we need to take pride in culture, but we need to change some of the conversations that we have within the culture and go away from rugged individualism to one other and building together. So when you talk about Black wealth, is not just what I can do for myself, is what I can do for the overall group. But I think pride and confidence in our culture is very important, right? So you a Garvey quote. And Garvey also says that if you have no confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life, right? You know, so I love Garvey. So I like the fact you started with that quote. So I had to give you another one. But the point is, when you talk about wealth and culture, wealth needs to be a bigger part of our culture, but not just wealth, what I can do for me, not the rugged individualism, but what can I do for the overall unit? And I think that's where the culture and wealth conversation kind of have to, merge, is right there. So those are my thoughts when you say that overall. But I do believe that we have a culture. We have subsets of the culture, but there's an all culture. I looked up the definition of culture. It's the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. So we do have that. And we do have subsets of that. So I get where Malik was going with that as well. So if you've ever been to Atlanta, there's like an Atlanta culture, but that's still a part of the overall Black culture. So those are my thoughts on culture and Black wealth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was going to pull the definition, and I was going to read both the definition you just gave, Jimmy, and there is another definition, because as we all know, words are living, words move and transform. But there's another definition as a subset of that says the set of values, conventions, and social practices associated with a particular field, activity, or societal characteristics. And so I do agree. I do believe we have an overall overarching macro culture. Hip hop is absolutely Black culture, right? It came out of it. And when I speak of culture, I'm not talking about from the Black experience in America. I'm talking about globally. So I'm looking at everything, right? It's a phenomenon that in every Black or African colonized place, we all butchered the language, right? So many would say that culture is in our DNA, and we all have a shared culture. Even many of our foods, even many of our musics, many of our words, again, we all kind of share a standardized thing, right? But I do agree there are subcultures. We're all from Philly. Everybody knows what joint means, right? And y'all probably all cringe when y'all hear people from outside of Philly use it in the improper context, right? So, I totally get it. But what I'll say about culture is I think we've been trained, right? We've been trained to believe something and someone else is greater and better than us. And that's been used and done through propaganda and media and many other things, where they continuously show us in over-sexualized light, over-criminalized light, under-educated light, and they basically show us as thugs or animals. And so many times we start trying to adopt the culture of our oppressors. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have. Me, Jimmy, and Corey were on By the Hoods Live Friday the other day, and we started talking about it. But oftentimes when we acquire wealth or get rich, we want to do everything white folks do, instead of doing things that are necessary to propel the Black community to a higher degree of success. And so I think that's very detrimental, and one of the many reasons why we are why we are behind. And so as we change that mindset and we change our cultural leanings, we'll be a lot better. What are we saying, Jim?
No, I was saying you're talking about those Negro-peans that yes. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? Even if we can openly identify Negro-peans, there are unconscious Negro-peans out there that aren't thinking about buying black.
Absolutely. No, you're right.
Yeah, that aren't thinking about the importance of black education, right? You know, Malcolm X says, what's the famous quote? We give our children to our oppressors to train them and to educate them, and we haven't figured that out yet.
A fool.
Not me.
Hey, listen, let me say this real quick, Kamari. I just want to say two things before we get too far along in the conversation. One, next time copy and paste that, because State Farm and TD Ameritrade did not sponsor this program. So when you shared that image, we need them to cut us a check before we start giving them free promo. That's the first thing.
Yeah, from the website. All right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Now,
No, you're 1,000%.
Now, secondly, for the sake of entertainment, right, and for the sake of the show, I'm not going to let one statement that you just said slide. For entertainment's sake, when you said anytime we get the language, we butcher it. I'm not going to go in like how, but I'm going to just let you know that I caught that one. I didn't want to let it slide for the sake of entertainment for the folks. but you know, I mean, no, that's it. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. I'm not going to go in. Go ahead. It's good.
I mean, we got patois.
I'm gonna just say I didn't like the statement. That's all.
That's fine. I mean, but let me give a little bit more context, right? I am not saying that when black folks speak proper English, they are not black. That is not what I'm saying. All right. But what I am saying is that in every region and everywhere you go, we have our own way and our own slang.
That's called dialect, man. We create our own dialect so we can get to our own folks.
That's
but
right.
I get what you. I got where you're going. But I agree. I agree with Malik. It did rub me kind of the wrong way to hear.
Yeah, but like, listen. I come from a place where I don't let anything slide, and so I had to point it out.
I mean, you also said language is living, is breathing. So I don't know about it being butchered if language is living and breathing.
Besides
like,
that,
you know, we dictate culture also because
that's right.
We do dictate culture, and I'm gonna say this real fast.
You know what I'm saying? So like, we create words, we create language.
Nobody say that white folks butcher languages. Now listen, Corey, how do white folks talk down in Texas? Like, this is, come on, you go to South Philly. We first of all, on billboards here in Philadelphia, it says water ice, WOODER. That is not black. And that language is definitely butchered. Now I'm finna go crazy right now on this boat.
For sure.
Talk to him.
Now, out there, nobody ever says that white folks are butchering the language. That's all.
I would go back to what Corey just said. I would say that's dialect. I think when you look at patois, that's a whole language in and of itself. When you look at Creole, that's a whole language in and of itself, right? And they're all
you said you could have said that we use a different dialect.
Say that again.
So I'm sorry. I didn't want to be a whole.
You said we butchered the language.
Yeah, that's not what you said, though.
Like I said, I'm sorry. I didn't want to be a whole thing. I just wanted to point it out as, like I said, let nothing slide. That's all.
Nah, it's cool. It's all good. So does anybody have anything on that, on culture and black? Well, you know, before we do that, let's check in with our people first. Hello, Tracy. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us.
Peace.
Fatherhood says good evening. Good evening, Fatherhood. Okay, he said golf is addictive, right? It is a sport.
Live from Charlotte.
Scorpion C. Sorry, I'm late, Charlie. Hey, Charlie, how you doing? That's Charlie Philly. So welcome to everybody. If you're just joining, this is the Black Wealth Project. Be sure to share, like, and comment on this. Let's get busy. Let's talk. Let's have a dialogue and share this, because we're looking to take the culture to a higher level so we can all be on code and start to move and do things in a better way and collectively make our money talk. So who has anything for that? Nobody else has anything for what I said?
Do. No, I do. And I think it's...
let's go.
No. But I think I'm glad you said it, because it's a very Eurocentric view in terms of butchering. And you also made a comment about over-sexualization of Black women and criminalization of Black men, and how that's culturally kind of been adopted by some people. I don't know. But I want to be very clear that those aspects of what's imputed to us are imputed to our culture, imputed to our race. They were acts that came from slavery, and it came from slave masters and property owners and all those other people to justify what they were doing to us. And I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I mean, at the end of the day, Black women, enslaved women were brutally raped on a repeated basis, and the justification was that they were they were made to be sexualized to justify, well, that's why I raped her. No, it's not. You raped her because you're a rapist. On the other side, in terms of criminalization, no, we had slave catchers, we had brutality for men and women, and we justified it because we were like, oh, they're criminals. No, you just wanted to beat us, and you justified your beatings and your maltreatment with the fact that you assigned us as criminals. You had slave catchers, which to some cases, it is the precursor of modern day policing. So I really want us to question, I guess I say that in general, is that we have to question every single thing that we have taken at face value up to this point, because there's so many things that are ingrained in this culture that was a culture of subservience, or at least for our race to be subservient to another, that they justify what they were doing to us. We were property. We were somebody's property, and they try to justify every single time they did something terrible to us is that, oh, no, their property, or oh, no, they're 3/5 of a person. Oh, no, that woman, she's overly sexualized. That's why I raped her. Or that man, he seemed very aggressive, but you more or less bred people that way. Those who were not fit to actually procreate they died. That's Darwinism. So you're
let me say this though. Let me step in and say this. I didn't say that we accepted being over-sexualized or over-criminalized. I'm saying that's the message that was put out there. Also,
the point that you made.
But wait a minute. But also, over-sexualization, the message that was put out there is not just here in the United States. That happened amongst Black people and brown people all around the world. What's the famous?
Colonizers.
Yes, absolutely, by colonizers, right?
Yes.
Like in the famous cases of the sister from South Africa with the large rear end that was put on play.
Sarah Barton.
Right.
Sarah
So
Barton. Yeah, but
it wasn't just the United States.
What her name was, but
What's
that's
that?
what they called her. Her name, they call her Sarah Bartman, but that was not her name.
Oh, is that a real name? Okay.
No,
Yeah.
she had a South African name.
She had a
No,
South
that's
African
not.
name.
Yeah, I want to say.
Well, yeah, for sure. I got you.
I want to say she was Zulu, but don't quote me on that. So I'm saying it happened everywhere, and many times it affected our culture. It affected our viewpoint of ourselves, because a lot of times we took it on. Yes, it was absolutely propaganda, and I wasn't trying to say that it was right. Please believe I'm not saying it was right by no way, shape, means, or fashion. I'm just saying that it's a part of a history of us arriving to where we are. Not just here in the United States, but globally.
Yeah, global colonization was global. I mean, they said at one point the sun never sets on the English Empire or the United Kingdom.
The British Empire, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that was real.
But come on,
colonized the whole daggone world. So I mean, so I wasn't, and I apologize if you took it that way. I kind of went from there to kind of piggyback some of the other statements that you made to put them in context, because again, I really think we've taken, to your point, we've taken some of these attributes on as our own, and they don't belong to us, and you have to push that off.
Yeah, and I also think that, Kamari, part of what you're talking about is the fact that overall we don't control our media. So some of these like negative attributes are being like, they're shown as being part of our culture when that's not really part of our culture, because we don't control our own media. And that's why platforms like this, platforms that we all have individually, are so important, because now we have a chance to, tell our narrative. So it's not just being shown to us, right? One of the books I was just talking about earlier on the timeline was Brainwash, right? Brainwash is not just how Coca-Cola and Pepsi sell products to us, but it's how America brands, our culture. It's not us doing it. So I think that's kind of what you were talking about, is how our culture is perceived based upon how it's being shown to us.
Yeah, I have a real issue with the way we brand to each other too, though, because of the way people talk about us around the world comes from the way we were branded from outside forces. But the way we talk to one another, that has more about that's more relational. You know what I mean? And we do a lot of our music, especially like talks about a lot of people who were poor who had money and then call other people broke, and that drives me absolutely nuts, right? And then a lot of bitches hoes and that kind of stuff, and that specifically is relationships, right? Like that's the way we relate to one another. And so a lot of what we're talking about is relationship based. You know what I mean? Like when people get money and don't want to come back, that's because of the relationships that happened to them on the way to wherever they got economically. You know what I mean? And so we have to find a better way to relate to one another if we ever want to take it to a place where we can trust one another. Because another thing that, and going to Courtney's point, is that came out of slavery is the distrust that we have for one another. Because when the slave catchers wanted to catch the slaves, 9 times out of 10 they didn't even send a white person. You know what they sent? They sent another black person, because we you know what I mean, they was coming because that person could easily maneuver and catch the other black person. And so we have to find a way to trust one another and relate to one another on a basis that allow us to move forward culturally together. And economically, like I said, that economic backstop is big, because the people who have that economic backstop, um I'm not going to say need to provide a safety net for those other people, because you work for your money and I can't tell people what to do with their money. But it's about trying to, if we're going to improve as a culture, we need everybody, and that includes rich and poor, that includes fat and skinny, that short and tall. Everybody, we need everybody. We need all different types. And so we need frontline warriors, and we need people who have jobs in specific places, and we need all of these things culturally, so that we can get ahead. And all of these is like a computer system that doesn't talk to one another. You ever call a company, and they say you owe money, you paid one section over here, and the
You
person
know, government.
yeah. Anybody. This happened to me this week. I rented a car. I paid for the car, and then like 2 hours later, the lady was like, "Yeah, you supposed to bring the car back today." And I'm like, "Yo, I just paid y'all 2 hours ago. Why y'all, why y'all systems don't communicate? Why are you calling me?" And you know what I mean? And so, and then she's like, "Oh, I have to make a call. I'll call you back." And then 15 minutes later, she's like, "Oh yeah, I see your payment." Like, yeah, you could have did that before you called me, though. You know what I mean? But that's how black people relate to one another in my eyes. We got things happening over here, and we got these individual projects interdispersed all over the place. But if we could
Rugged
if we
individualism. That's what it
yeah,
all boils down to.
but what I'm saying is, if we could aggregate those projects, I'm talking about people that's doing good work. That's not even individual work. I'm talking about community organizations and all of these type of things. If we could aggregate those projects, we could get a lot more done.
Yeah, I think
Let's shift for a minute. We're not really a shift, right? But we saw corporations and governments starting to adopt Juneteenth or give their workers off for Juneteenth. How does everybody feel about that?
I needed a day off.
Right.
I mean, and I'm gonna be very honest. I completely needed a day off, and since the murder, I'm keeping it funky. The murder of George Floyd, there has been increasing tensions, increasing desires to have a conversation about race. And one of the things that is part and parcel of this conversation about race that I've noticed with the majority is that they want us to educate them. And at first you're like, hey, I should help you understand. It's like, no, that's exhausting. I'm exhausted. I'm not doing that. But I do share this. There were two instances where I was like overwhelmed with the level of ignorance and disregard for someone who looks like me. The first time is that we were having a conversation amongst a group of attorneys, and we were talking about our interaction with the criminal justice system. Now, a lot of the attorneys that were in the conversation were saying, I really would like to help, but I don't do criminal law. And I'm like, really? So we're so conditioned to think that the only time that an African American or a Black person has a problem with the law, it's always in the criminal realm. We have a lot of problems when it comes to wealth creation and wealth generation in terms of losing assets during the probate process or lack thereof. We have a lot of tangled titles, especially in the Philadelphia area. And a tangled title is a property that that was with one family member, and then after several deaths or disappearances of family members, now we don't have proper ownership of the property, and we cannot convey it to someone else.
Big facts.
So that's a huge mess. So anybody who does estate work or does real estate, you can help there. We have a lot of consumer problems. You can help there too. We have a lot of employment issues. There's racism in employment every single day. So the fact of the matter is, you believe that all our conversations or all our interactions with the law is the criminal realm. That's how you've been conditioned, and you want me to fix that? So like I said,
that's heavy.
Send him Tracy's list. Send him the list of books to read.
And the words of another great Negro poet, either they don't know, don't show, or don't care about what's going on in the hood.
Wait a minute, let's pull it back. How do you feel about Juneteenth being adopted by Twitter and other governments like that, Malik?
Oh, Malik. Oh, man, listen. I just... Donald Trump made it popular. That's all I'm saying. Donald Trump, nobody even knew about Juneteenth until Donald Trump started talking about it. That's all I feel.
You got something for that, Tracy?
I'm just over. I just can't do him with Donald Trump anything and making anything popular about Juneteenth.
Nobody knew about it until Trump. He made it wildly popular, as he said. Trump did. No. So listen, I don't want them to give the day off for Juneteenth because it's the cool thing to do. I want them to really understand why they're giving the day off for Juneteenth. Not so, it's a whole big Black folks are getting mad because this whole Juneteenth thing. We'll just give them the day off. We'll just give them a non-paid day off. We'll just give whatever. Why? What is the reason for the Juneteenth? And will make even more sense is to address the reason why we even need to celebrate Juneteenth. Like, what are you doing to make amends for the reason why we even need to celebrate Juneteenth, right?
But people don't understand history. And that's really, I had to spend a lot of time on Juneteenth explaining how we even got here.
Right.
And I think the thing is, and I think, Kamara, you talked about it earlier, is about we allow our children to be educated by some other factor, some other force, and then we wonder why they come back with crap. So at the end of the day, the way they try to tell us is that what I learned in school is that Lincoln freed the slaves. That's how they won the war, and life went on. And then Black people somehow got jammed up with Jim Crow. And then here comes Martin Luther King saving the day, and all is good. That's exactly what I was taught in school. Like that's the brief. That's
pretty much.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah.
And my problem is that's not true. It's just not true.
Nothing about that is true.
I'm like, first of all, as a war tactic. So that was the first thing. And the second of all is that not all slaves were free under the Emancipation Proclamation. It was only, if you read the 5 pages that's in script or the 7 paragraphs that exist, because I have, it only says those that are in the rebellion states. So, and then it specifically exempts New Orleans. It exempts Norfolk, Portsmouth, Virginia.
Portsmouth.
Yeah. Thank you. It also exempts West Virginia. It exempts a couple of different places that are border states that still had slaves, but they were on the Union side, so they were all good. So again, I want to be very clear that it wasn't all slaves. So that's the first thing. So then actually after the war was over, there were still slaves in the air all over the place. So that was the second thing. Slavery didn't go away as we know it at that point until the passage of the 13th Amendment. But there was a nice little caveat in there. It was like, unless you've been duly convicted of a crime. So you know what they did on the back end? They created a whole bunch of crimes that only basically applied to black people and then put them back in slavery. So again, we have codes, and then it was precursor to Jim Crow. So you had black codes, then you had Reconstruction, where things were a lot better because they were able to do Reconstruction, but they did a little broker deal in Washington that says, listen, we will pull our troops out of occupation of the Confederate South. And they said, okay, we'll let you have your government back. And what did they do? They instituted Jim Crow. So again, we have to understand what exactly happened. So Juneteenth, so let me back up. So Juneteenth is actually when Texas was notified that they were technically free, because Texas was actually part of the rebellion states. That's the only reason why those particular, 250,000 slaves were free at that point. But it was still an overt act that had to happen. And only if the Union won were those slaves actually, quote, free. So again, it was a very complex time. And I think when we oversimplify it, we can't even appreciate the complexities that exist today. We have a lot of problems here. And I guess, and Malik said, how do we even get Juneteenth? Yeah, because you messed us up. And we're messed up again. And we're celebrating Juneteenth as a reminder of, being free, but we still weren't free. I mean, what did they do with the war on drugs? They reenacted that 13th Amendment again, that little section about duly conviction. And then, we're back in jail again. So it's a really, and then there were even people who were still born after 1865 that were slaves too. So there's a lot going on. And I think it's a slap in the face on one side, but then I'm like, okay, you're recognizing Juneteenth as a holiday, so maybe we can start the conversation of you fixing the educational system, because part of the reason why we're having so many problems and disconnects with white people, because they're like, well, slavery's not that bad. Well, they weren't told about the horrific and the atrocities of slavery in school. They weren't. Where else would they learn them?
Hey, can I interject real quick?
Oh man, listen, because you said so. Go ahead, Malik. You got it.
Let me just say this, right? So Courtney, for that last statement, I'm gonna say this, right? I think a few years ago, I posted a question on my Facebook page that says, would you own slaves today if you were allowed to? A ridiculous amount of black people said yes, but I'll be a good slave owner. I'm like, wait, you'll be a what? Like, they said, no, I wouldn't beat them, I wouldn't do nothing, but they'd be my slave. A lot of people said that. These are black folks, right? And so if they have that mindset, then of course white people gonna be like, yeah, we could be really good slave masters too. And so, like, just the even understanding of they don't know that slavery was that bad. Like, oh, person was a slave, but hey, you gave him food, you gave him shelter, all they had to do was work. It's not that bad. I would do that now, and so it's not just the understanding of what slavery actually was, separating the family, the rape, the maiming, the torture, the mental piece of it. And not only that, you just can't leave. You're on this 200, 300 acre farm for your entire life, picking, and as Corey just described it, the oppressive heat that is in Texas, picking cotton all day with the snakes, with the giving birth in the field, picking baby up and still going to work. Like, people just don't understand the atrocities, right. With slavery. But all in all, man, I just think that,
let's go to Jimmy real quick, because he had something on this as well. I don't want him to lose it.
Yeah.
What you got, Jimmy?
No, I was just talking about that last point that she made about people in slavery. That's like crazy. Corey and I this afternoon were having a conversation. So our next book is coming out soon. Shameless plug. But part of it, we're talking about that. And
can we get that? Let me get an exclusive.
Oh, the name of the book coming out is called Hard Work is for Suckers. But anyway, in talking about slavery, most people don't even want to broach the topic, and that's our people. That's also, the colonizers, right? Because they don't want to talk about the atrocities. Like, you barely touched on with some of the things that have happened to us, like the buck breaking, the rape, being treated like property and forced to have kids with your own family. Some of the things when you start to research slavery were so brutal that most of us don't want to talk about it. They definitely don't want to talk about it. Most of us don't want to talk about it, and that's problematic to begin with. I'm also I see Courtney is still fired up. I know on Juneteenth she was fired up online, which was amazing. I saw her give out history lessons. So we got another one here tonight. That's because people need to hear that because they don't understand. And the fact of the matter is, your original question about Juneteenth and how we feel about the way is part of Panda Express. I just think that it's actually, to me, it's an interesting time we're living in. Right. So I was reading the article that you shared, Kamari, about like this whole idea of what's going on overall with Juneteenth, with the pandering, and how long will it last, and what can we do to make it benefit us. So that's all. What I always think about: what can this do to help us? Everything that's going on now, how can we actually use that? Although most of it we know is phony, emails are phony. Like, we don't care if Best Buy, supports Black Lives Matter, because what does that really matter to us? But at the end of the day, how can we use everything going on with Juneteenth, with all these corporations, with your Congress people kneeling, with their kente cloth on? How can we use all these things to somehow benefit us in the long run? Those are the kind of conversations I like to have, because at the end of the day, all that stuff you're doing with Juneteenth and all that, you're not talking about the one thing that matters most, and that's power and equity. When are we going to start having those conversations about power, equity? That's what I want to talk about. When are we going to start having conversations about the 14 trillion? It's like they're doing all these things to avoid the real conversations that'll change in terms of what we're doing today. Now, it's also incumbent upon us to be prepared. Conversations, to be prepared if anything falls to us. But when are we going to start having these real conversations?
This is why when me and you talk, why I always say I hate these symbolic gestures, because the symbolic gestures lead to us not being able to have the real conversations. And so every time, they keep hitting us with these, like, that money is real, so go grab that money. That's not a symbolic gesture. That's a real gesture. Take that money. But like y'all say, what about that C-suite? Can we get some equity in there so that money, you don't have to keep every 5 or 10 years hitting us with this $500 million check that you got to disperse amongst all these? No, man. If we have the equity, we can hit ourselves with the money. We don't need that. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not asking them to give us nothing, because those companies created themselves. As far not as far as I'm talking about the newer companies. All the older companies, they all into the slave trade and they all trash. But the Panda Express. I mean, and all
we can make the connection with the new ones too, though, bro. Like the new ones, you can make the connection.
We can connect it, but we're going. I'm trying to stay on top of it, because if I get into that whole loop, I'll never get out of it, because I really have a real problem about how those companies were formulated and things of that nature. But is it, like you said, it's incumbent upon us to get some of this power. I don't celebrate anything, so Juneteenth, it's not that it doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't mean anything to me as far as a holiday.
Let me jump in real quick, because I wanted to ask another question as it relates to culture and Black people. Should we create and declare our own holidays, or are you just totally against?
Absolutely.
No, absolutely. I'll celebrate. I don't have a problem with Juneteenth and with Black people celebrating, because it's something that Black people created, and so I'll never poop on the people who actually celebrate Juneteenth. But yes, we should. Like, and a perfect example of that is like you like to talk about Jewish people, right? When they couldn't get their holidays, all the teachers just stopped showing up for work. All of the people just stopped showing up, and so they was like, "All right, you ain't gotta give us our holidays. Cool, we good on that. But we ain't gonna show up on those days though." And so you do whatever you got to do with that information, but we won't be there. So we got to do some stuff like that if we really want those holidays. But the thing is, we don't own anything. So if we do that, we're at the whim of the person who does own it. And then you got a lot of people who out of a job. And so that's the point. That's the point of this discussion. Like, how do we get equity? That's really what we're talking about.
I'm gonna say this. I do make this one point about what Courtney said about the schools. And first, and I'm gonna get back to this, is the schools still teach that Columbus discovered America, and everybody know that ain't true, but it doesn't matter. They are not taking it out of the school books. There's not one district in this country who is going to remove that Christopher Columbus discovered America out of the school books. everyone knows it's not true. But once again, so there's that. But to what Corey was saying, I think that right. So with they had the whole armed militia protecting that statue in South Philly. Nobody even knew it was there until they showed up. nobody knew it was there.
The gravy seals.
Yeah, the gravy seals, right? Yeah.
Should we declare our own holidays? How do you feel about that?
Listen. So honestly, I think I'm a part of the problem when it comes to declaring our own holidays, because when I think of Kwanzaa, I think of who invented the Kwanzaa and his history with the struggle for freedom and Black Panthers and so I don't even really celebrate Kwanzaa, even though it's positive. So I will take that I am a part of the problem when it comes to like really embracing Kwanzaa, because I look to the very beginning. But when it comes to every holiday that we did start, Kamari, like Memorial Day was ours. We started that, and it came. And honestly, as long as we don't see white folks on South Street drunk on Juneteenth with kente cloth, I'm okay. I'm okay. I just don't want them to see. I don't want them to have the kente cloth colored beads, right? With a Bud Ice walking down South Street, high five, woo, Juneteenth. I just don't want to see that. That's it.
Right.
You know. But
all right, Courtney, what do you think?
That's fair.
Go ahead.
That's fair.
No, Malik is tearing me up today, right? Because the question. That question got me jacked up. I'm really thinking about that and how people will say they would be okay with slavery. That's mind-boggling right there. But Courtney, what's your take on it? Should we declare our own holidays?
I definitely think we should. I definitely think we should. I mean, that's part of the culture. Having your own holidays that you that belong to you. That again, that's part of your culture. But again, I didn't know. I think I did know that we started Memorial Day. But again, who gives us credit for it? Nobody. But yet and still, Christopher Columbus discovered America. And in 1492, the fact that I even know that really hurts the bejesus. Because I wish people would. Ivan Van Sertima's book that came before Columbus. I would like people to read it. It's one of my favorite books.
We should do a segment on it.
Hey, listen. There's another book called When Rocks Cry Out.
When Rocks Cry Out, right?
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
So
how about Lies My Teacher Told Me? That's another one.
Lies My Teacher Told Me. So there's a lot of books about what happened pre-Columbus.
And even they came before Columbus. So
Yeah.
So Tracy, what do you think? Should we have our own holidays? Should we declare our own holidays?
Absolutely. I think we should declare our own holidays, especially for things that we feel are relevant and should be celebrated, and we can designate how they're celebrated.
Right.
I think that we should celebrate. I think just it has to start with a woman, right? Because like I think in all of like the Black revolt, like the Black women really held it down, like even to Bree Newsom, right? Like from any of the Maroons to Bree Newsom, we could think of this whole line of Black women who really were the spark. Rosa Parks, right? We really were the spark of all the civil rights movements, like all revolutions. It really all started with Black women, and right. And
Black
I think what's that?
Black woman is
Black women always
down.
Yeah, always, and I don't think that civil rights. You always Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. The only women you ever really hear about, right, is Rosa Parks, and not like the warriors. Not like Nzinga, like these real.
Yeah.
Like,
you got Ida B. Wells and those. You know what I mean? Like it's a whole line of Sojourner Truth.
Let me answer the question though, let me answer the question because I didn't get my chance to answer the question yet. And it's first off, I just want to start by saying, and I know Tracy will agree with me, man. Yo, I'm so thankful for Ivy Leaf, yo, because a lot of what y'all talking about just wasn't my experience. Like we studied all these women, all the women you named, we studied. We create our own holidays. Listen. I'm not waiting for anyone. I already take two. Like these days, I just don't work already. May 19th, Malcolm X's birthday. August 17th, Marcus Messiah Garvey's birthday. There's several days I can give you throughout a calendar. And I know that Kamari was talking about that's one thing we need to do is create our own calendar. So, but these are things that I already do. And this is something that is not new to me because this is how I was raised, right? So I just thank God every day for Ivy Leaf. I know it doesn't exist anymore, but for those that went through that, understand exactly where I'm coming from. That's why I said Tracy can relate to that.
Yep.
We had these days when we went there where, you know, we studied Malcolm X. We on his birthday, it was a big thing. It's a big thing, George Washington Carver. Like we weren't taught about Columbus. And the thing is, we weren't taught. Some people would say, okay, well, you guys were taught to hate. We were taught just to, like, you know, we don't care what you're doing. This is our culture, and this is what we do. This is our history, and this is what we're going to do. We're great, and we're going to achieve these things. It was almost like you don't exist to us in a sense. So because of that, and also on the second note, having a father who is a member of the NOI, my outlook is just completely different. My outlook is completely different. So, man, some of these stories you talk about the education piece, I just can't relate to it, but I understand it exists. And a lot of times when you're dealing with people right now who want to pander and help out, yo, you just got to give them books to read. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm even having conversations. Here are some books. If you're really serious and want to do something, read this book. Because there's several books out there that tell the real story of what happened, that tell the brutality of slavery, that tell, and a lot of times what's funny is how shocked they are. When you tell them that Columbus don't discover America, a lot of times they're shocked. And I'm shocked at the fact they're shocked.
Well, they don't,
and not just them, some of our people as well. Like, because people don't read. Listen, there's several books out there. And when you talk about that question that Malik had, I just want to get this in, about Black folks wanting to be like slave owners. There's an amazing book called 40 Acres. This is actually a fiction book, right? But it's an amazing story about Black people trying to actually have this huge acre land where they actually they kidnapped white folks and made them slaves. But it's an interesting narrative, and it's written by a Black guy, but it's an interesting narrative, and like you learn a lot through this fiction book. But it's called 40 Acres. A good book. Put that, you know, I'm always got to bring the books. So Laz, my teacher, told me 40 Acres. And we probably named about 7 other books this episode.
Yeah. To that point, I think it's really important that my parents, like, I went to a Catholic school growing up, and then I went to a magnet school. My parents made sure that I was educated. My grandfather made sure that I was educated. I had so many Black history coloring books. You know, we had conversations about, you know, everybody under the sun that's ever invented anything. We had conversations about, because his biggest thing was that you're going to understand this history. You're going to understand from which you came, because they're going to tell you stories about yourselves and narratives about your people that aren't true. My first book that I read about slavery that I can remember was Julius Lester's To Be a Slave. And it's a book about slave narratives. I read it when I was 12 years old. And I remember specifically standing in my kitchen with my parents going, why are they not saying this in school? Why are they not telling us the truth? And as soon as you realize this, and I think this is an important thing for a student at any time, as soon as you realize that what you're being told is not completely truthful, it changes the paradigm for you. And you learn to question everything. Like, we're told to question everything, but once you find that like kind of smoking gun, you're like, y'all lie. Y'all liars. Okay.
Yep. Listen.
I know who you are now.
I'm with Jimmy. Completely different experience. Did not have that experience.
Yeah, I never had a white teacher till I got to Central.
Yes, same for me with ENS. Like, I didn't know any of that stuff, and it was like I was taught the truth. So when you tell me this other stuff, I'm like, that's not what I know. Because here's the book, here's the research, literally down to everything from learning about Queen Nzinga and doing head reps in the actual classroom to learn what to do. On George Washington Carver's birthday, doing peanut experiments, learning how to make peanut butter. Like,
exactly.
That was our reality. Like, I definitely feel like that type of installation was so important for the Black and brown boys and girls that went to that school to be able to literally walk amongst the colonizers today and be able to have a sense of self.
Yeah. But hold on, let's take a pause real quick and let's acknowledge some of these comments and people that are chiming in. So we have Salima, and she says, our rich, talking about the Black rich, have a responsibility to give back. They should be reinvesting in our communities, but we've adopted a mindset of individualism that doesn't work for us.
Fact.
I don't like the word responsibility. Like, because their responsibility is to take care of their family, of their individual family. So they don't have a responsibility to do anything but take care of their family. But if they take care of their family and and can do more for the community, I would say that would be appreciated. But you cannot tell people what to do with their money once they earned it. I have a real problem with that, and not because I don't want to give back, but because I don't like. It's like it's fascist, like to tell people what to do with their money. Like you just can't do that.
But I
To
think
say
by
they have a
taking care of your family.
Yeah,
by
I just
taking
don't.
care
I
of
don't
your
like that
family, that's
word
my kind of thing.
responsibility. Everything else, I'm in agreement with. I just don't like the word responsibility because their responsibility is only to their family.
What were you want to say, Jimmy?
No, I was just going to say that I understand exactly what she's saying, and I also understand his thoughts on responsibility. But that's where it starts. It starts with taking care of yourself and then taking care of your family, and you're working your way outward. So I understand exactly where she comes. You know, the whole what's the with great power comes great responsibility. But you
Right.
really can't tell anyone what to do with their money. But I do believe that it starts with taking care of yourself and then taking care of your family. And if we all focused on that, you know, we'd be in a lot better shape. We'd be in a lot better shape. But the whole idea of individualism, some people don't even care about their family. And
Absolutely. I mean,
I've
I think
seen
it's
this.
dynamic, right? You can't have a group without good individuals, but it's really hard to create a good individual without a good group as well.
Yeah.
So that it's a balance, right? One isn't more
Mhm.
important than the other. But so me and Salima, we debate all the time, and I get the sentiment of it, but I don't like the word responsibility, like Corey and Jimmy echoed as well.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything for this? No.
Nope.
All right. Creations Michelle, thank you for joining us. Jaris or Jaris? Jaris.
Her name is Jaris.
I got it right on the second try. I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah.
Jaris Lewis said, it's lazy to ask us to educate them. Read a book. Hell, watch a documentary or 3.
Right.
I love that comment. And that's
So much material. So much material out there. Pick something.
right.
Anything.
All right. So Tracy Hurst says, I love the day off, but soon white culture will try and capitalize off of it with Macy Day sale. Yes, I was going there. I didn't get a chance to get there yet.
Macy gonna be closed before then, so
With Macy Day sale.
Macy gonna be out of business.
It may not
won't be Macy's.
But it might be Amazon. It might be Amazon. So I get her sentiment. I get her point 1,000.
Get them shorts in. Get them shorts in.
All right. Creations themselves says it's not lazy to educate. I think it's great to educate others and give direction, unless they don't want to be educated. Some people listen and read, don't know how to comprehend.
I hear where she's coming from with this, but I think the concern is in this environment that we have, there.
Oh, no, not. No, come back.
Oh, they heard her. They heard her. She's about to say something so powerful they cut her off.
She's ready to set it off. No, but I know where she was about to go. Right? It's not lazy to educate other people. You right about that part, but it's not our responsibility to educate them. Right? A lot of the times they don't need education. They know already, and they want you to educate them because it takes you off here. It takes time to educate people about these issues. And if I'm spending my time educating you about issues that you should already be educating yourself about, how am I getting myself better? Like, if every second I spend educating you is a second that I'm not putting toward my own race and my own people and my own family, get on your own grind. Don't ask me to do it.
Tracy, I want to come back to you because you got cut off somehow.
I did. It was a technical difficulty. I have no idea what happened.
But I wanted to hear what you had to say. I wanted to honor what you had to say.
Yeah, no, it really just is at the day and time of where we are, the bombardment of all of the people constantly asking the questions, what can I do? How do I find out what's going on? And it's literally every circle, every situation that you encounter, and other people that are constantly wanting to know more, where it's a situation of, I would appreciate if you educated something about from yourself first. Google, find a book, do a blog, read a story, something. And if you have questions about that specific story or that specific era in Black culture or Black history, We can have a dialogue about it, but I'm not a history teacher. I can't sit here and have a whole conversation. That's not even what I do for a living. So I wouldn't even have the resources to be able to speak to you intelligently about the entire Black culture and the 400 and something years of enslavement that my people dealt with.
Right. I mean, I think the comment that comes to mind for me is the dialogue from The Matrix when my man was eating a steak. He said, ignorance is bliss. And I think a lot of the colonizers and the Keeblers adopt that as well. They're ignorant. They want to be ignorant, and it's blissful for them. Tracy says, woo, cliff notes about history. That was in response to Courtney's commentary.
Yeah.
Princess Lola Lewis says, Somalians wear ignorant. What is it, Corey?
Some Somalians here in Minnesota do it too. Takes a day off for weddings.
Thank you.
So yeah,
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher. Yo, what's going on, Jairus? Jairus is a childhood friend of mine. So what's going on? How you doing?
Shout out to Jairus for supporting tonight and joining us.
Hey, Jairus.
Yes, I mean, I think it is all exhausting, right? Going back to what Tracy and what Corey was saying. Because, I don't think anybody thinks about the invisible burden that all Black people carry when it comes to this stuff. And it's very exhausting physically, emotionally, and mentally. And I don't think enough people are talking about that.
Oh no, I think I said earlier.
Yeah. Courtney talks about that is incessantly, and she should, because it's tiring. It's a burden. It's literally a burden.
And so, Courtney, yes, I'm talking about in the overall conversation, like even amongst ourselves, Black folks, right? A lot of times we don't recognize how much weight it is to carry that.
For sure.
We just kind of ignore it. It's like, why am I tired? Because you've been watching Black people and brown people get killed for the last 400 years.
You're watching trauma porn. That's why.
Yeah.
I won't watch it. I won't watch it at all. I will see. I've seen the clip, like of the officer on his neck. Bloop, bloop, scroll up, and I'm like, "Who's sharing this? Delete it." I will not take it. I won't take it. I won't watch it. I'm not.
I still haven't seen it. I still haven't seen the video. To this day, I haven't seen that video.
Any of the videos.
I stopped watching them. Like,
I have not seen that.
It's a lot. And rewatch.
I think the last one was it was either Tamir Rice or the other one in Minnesota. At that point, that's when I just had to stop.
Yeah,
like
when they killed Philando Castile, I was done. I was like, all right, I'm never not watching. Yeah, I'm not watching any more of these.
No, I'm not.
It's so crazy when people start saying names. It's like I'm just reminded of how many names there are.
You know what was the crazier one? When they killed Corey when they killed Corey Gaines, when they killed the woman with her child in her arms.
Right.
Yo, that I was like, oh hell no, I can't watch no more of these, because now I'm gonna be out here ready to do something that my family ain't never gonna appreciate, because there's no way I can keep watching these and not respond. Right. I can't. There's nothing in the. I have to respond. If I gotta respond. Like every bone in my body is saying they killing us. Like, why are we not fighting back?
Right.
But you know what I mean? But on the other side is like if I go out like my man did in Cali, what was the cops?
Chris Dorner.
Chris Dorner. If I go out like Chris Dorner, my family don't get to see me no more, man. Like, how do I reconcile those two feelings? And that's the heavy feeling of watching those videos.
And they'll never understand that there's so many names that we actually forget. Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Like, it's a thing. Like, it's so many names, and you carry that on you every day. Like, and that video that I did see someone share the other day with the kids playing basketball. And like
a young boy hid
behind the car. Like, yo, I felt that on like a spiritual level, because like I'm in the car, I don't do nothing wrong. I'm a law-abiding citizen, but I know the feeling of getting scared when you see the fuzz behind you, and you ain't even doing nothing wrong.
You tense up. You know.
Yeah, it's like, yo, so you can never relate to that. Like, we carry that on us on a daily basis. Like, so that's why I had to stop watching them, because that stuff sticks with you.
Absolutely. But as we be respectful of everybody's time, we are about an hour and 20 in. So to close out on this point, right? Everybody give a 30-second synopsis of how you think culture impacts Black wealth and what you feel we should be doing going forward. Corey, I'm coming to you first.
What we should be doing going forward is combining time and combining money. Those are the two things. Combine time and combine money make big projects move faster, and it makes them happen. So combine time, combine money.
Okay. Malik.
So I 100% agree with what Corey said. I think that also we have to, is we got to teach people right now the actually importance of voting. We understand the importance of getting money. We don't necessarily understand the importance of giving that money to our politicians, but we do understand the importance of getting money. Now we gotta get people to see the importance of voting. As you see in Colorado, their new police accountability laws are just like next level. They put everybody on notice. All the new laws they put in place, and so that's a direct effect of the people that are willing to vote and people willing to work.
Gotcha. Jimmy.
I think that like I said earlier, we dictate cool, we dictate culture. We need to make wealth and powernomics or collaboration, however you want to put it, part of that culture. So Brother Joe Wilson said something to me that was interesting. He said that when you come out of certain neighborhoods in Philadelphia, one thing they teach you is how to hold your hands and how to have a jump shot. We need to take those same rules and apply like the principles of Black wealth as part of that same culture. So that should be a part of what we're teaching our young, but we should also work together. So I agree that working together, but making Black wealth a part of that culture. So when we dictate cool, we have those conversations. And I think that's actually already happening. To be honest with you, it seems to me that we are in a part of a renaissance in terms of talking about wealth, equity, and power. So I think it's thing, but we need to like stay on this.
Okay. All right. Tracy.
I agree with the collaboration and the cooperative economics. We definitely need to do a lot more to alleviate the trauma response of us not wanting to work together and spend money in our community, so that way our dollar can circle a lot more and go a lot farther. So I'd like to see a lot more of that.
Gotcha. Courtney.
I would like to see, I agree with collective work and collaborative economics. I think those are the really important points. But I think the bigger thing that I see is education and educating about history, because I've noticed a lot of conversations that I'm not my ancestors, y'all can get it beat. I'm like, nah, you are. We are. We are our ancestors. And if we got the right history, we would know that they cut it loose a lot. On a regular basis. So I really understand. I really want us to understand our history in context and actually through our lens, so we understand our obligation moving forward of what we owe to the community.
Gotcha. So lastly, what I would say is I think everybody should read the Nguzo Saba, which is basically the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. The Nguzo Saba is way more than just Kwanzaa, right? It's actually a whole way of life. And outside of that, I would say take a journey, take a mental journey and read some other literature or get some other books from other Black people outside of America and just see how they have dealt with various things. One of my favorite books is Things Fall Apart by
Chinua Achebe.
Chinua Achebe, thank you. One of my favorite books. And you can see the difference between pre-colonial Nigeria and post-colonial Nigeria through the lens of a continental African. So I think, as we start talking about culture and how, everybody's admitted or recognized that we dictated, how we can start to really control it and monetize it and benefit from it, from not just us, but from generations going forward. I want to thank everyone that joined us today. Appreciate you being here. Do us a favor, follow the Facebook page, The Black Wealth Project, like and subscribe to our Instagram page, The Black Wealth Project, and also find us over on YouTube, The Black Wealth Project. In closing, where did Malik go? What projects do everybody have coming up or need support with? Jimmy, I'm starting with you.
No problem. All right. So from now until tomorrow at noon, if you go to Buy the Hood University, we have a 50% off everything on the site sale. Use the promo code Juneteenth, right? We beat Macy's to it. You know what I'm saying? So we're going we're gonna use our own holiday. 50% off everything at BollywoodUniversity.com. We have all sorts of courses about learning the stock market, learning how to analyze companies. Our book, Own Your Time and Space, the digital downloads on there. So BollywoodUniversity.com.
Tracy, coming to you.
I would just say at this point, own something, own real estate, do some real estate investing, own the house that you live in, control your place where you lay your head. So, Real Estate Tracy is my tag for Instagram, social media, as well as Facebook and Twitter. Reach out to me if you need help or if you're in the Pennsylvania, Maryland, or DC area.
All righty. Corey.
We partner with a lot of different people. Check out the Head Nerds in Charge. They're a black podcast that is about nerd culture. So go check out our partners at Head Nerds in Charge. They're on Head Nerds in Charge on Facebook, Head Nerds in Charge on Twitter. They're dope dudes, and they dudettes. It's a mix like this show, and they're just completely dope. If you want to get your mind away from it, you want to talk about books from a black perspective, and you want to talk about nerd culture from a black perspective. Head Nerds in Charge.
All right, thank you, Corey. Courtney, coming to you.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you want more information about Juneteenth and kind of what happened, the real version of what happened, the street version of the Civil War, please follow me at the Ivy Investor on Instagram and Facebook. So that's THEIVY Investor, and that's pretty much it. I'm shutting down for the summer. I gotta turn down the lights.
All right, cool. Again, I just want to thank everybody for being here. As we close out, I just want to honor these last couple of comments. Tracy says, yes, we need to buy politics that support our interests. Absolutely. Money and politics, as relates to black wealth, are
hand in hand.
They're hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Wealth building is a must. That should start at a young age. Absolutely. Marcus Shaney says, once again, excellent roundtable discussion. Thank you, Marcus, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And lastly, Tracy here says, wealth of information received tonight. Thank you all. Well, no, thank you, Tracy. We appreciate your commentary. We appreciate all of you being here and all of you joining in the conversation. Don't forget, we will be back next Sunday, 7 p.m. Same Black Wealth Project time, same Black Wealth Project channel. Everybody have a great night. Again, thank you all. See you next week.
Bye.
Peace.